All right. In studio, we have Natalie Lasky. Thank you so much for coming down here and talking with us today. So I thought of you right away when all of the news started breaking about the presidential candidate and the selection of Bill Johnson. And I figured from a student's perspective, you could shed a little bit of light and kind of give me first introduce yourself to our audience and let everybody know who you are and who you're with.
Okay, so my name's Natalie Lasky. I hold various hats around campus, from being a vice president of Assessment Enrichment for the student government. I'm a co-founder and president of the WCBA Student DEI Advisory Board. I'm a multimedia journalist for the Jambar, and I'm a transgender leader on campus.
And so we met. I was at the TEDx, and you were so. We had such a good conversations. You were such a kind-hearted person, and so that's why when I thought of you, I figured you would bring a very genuine perspective in on this. So, from the students' perspective on the Bill Johnson, kind of fill everybody in on your views on it at this point.
Okay, so there's a lot of concerns going around on various angles. One from the process that the Board of Trustees took with how they went about selecting, and as well as just the fact that Congressman Johnson is a conservative leader and a Republican for the congressional party. So, or I said that backwards, but
yeah,
I turned around. I had the chance to meet with him, and I spent about an hour talking to him and getting to know him a little bit better, and just figuring out my perspective, because I actually graduate in 2 weeks here, and debating whether or not I will be going on to my master's degree or not. That was one of the deciding factors with all this coming about. Being a transgender woman at YSU, that's one of those deals where it's very concerning seeing all this unravel right before my eyes and stuff. And so being a journalist, and I have a curiosity and I have a passion for helping others. I want to be able to help as many people as possible. And I felt it was important that I ended up meeting with him and talking to him to find out where his views lied on LGBT-related issues and just get a general feel for him. So.
Okay, and so after talking to him, I mean, I'm sure you had concerns going into it. Was he able to dispel any of those concerns? Was he able to kind of win you over a little bit?
Okay, so like I told him, I'll tell you the same thing. As a transgender woman, especially being out and open, I lean left on certain topics, whereas I'm a Marine Corps veteran, so I lean right on certain topics. But as a journalist, or a student journalist in this case, I'm neutral on topics, and I keep my bias out of it whenever I go in and I ask people interview questions. I'm not there to express my own views. I'm not the expert whenever I'm interviewing someone. It's their time to shine. And so I wanted to get a good feel as to where his aspirations are and what type of leader he's going to be on campus. And so far, I feel that he is definitely going to lead with his heart. And even though he is conservative, he is a open-minded individual. He has a nephew that was gay. He has former military members that served under him that also transitioned. He specifically told me about the one story where he had I forget what rank they were, but they both served in the Air Force together and this individual transitioned after getting out of the Air Force, and then met with the congressman years later and even showed him the letter that the congressman wrote for him, except for he was no longer a him, he was now a woman. And the congressman identified her as the woman that she is today, and even whenever he was speaking to me, he referred to me with the proper pronouns, or the politically correct pronouns, which is a controversial thing amongst conservatives anyways. Like, a lot of people take the stance as, no, you're born this gender and that's how I'm going to refer you. And, I'm a firm believer in free speech and that, so I generally let that type of stuff roll off my shoulder and everything, because I'm not there to argue with someone's perspective. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, just as I'm entitled to my own views and everything. And the big thing is being able to work together. And as the president of the student DEI, or Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, it's important that we realize that diversity, equity, inclusion does not just mean the liberals, or it doesn't just mean the conservatives. It doesn't mean any one of those things. It means all of it collectively combined, as diversity truly means being able to value and respect each and every person's opinion, even when we disagree with them.
Yeah, and now, this when this dust up happened, like, anytime that I've ever sat down with someone, even if I vehemently disagree with everything, the person that's across from me is usually like 99% we have in common, and it's only like 1% that we have disagreement on. So it humanizes the other person. So it felt a whole lot like, when the dust up happened, you get to know this guy as a person, and he's not quite the devil that he was being painted as being. So that was the first thing that hit me. I'm kind of right on that?
Yeah, and actually, going right along with what you were just saying there, Congressman Johnson even stated that, look, he's a firm believer in one-party legislation, or not one party, excuse me, one-topic legislation, because a lot of legislation bundles all these different topics together. You got home energy, you got energy topics, you got gender topics, you got all these topics that have nothing to do with each other, but they get bunched together in a fine print of the legislation. And as he stated, if he agrees on 5 out of 6 of the topics, and he votes for those topics because he puts his views down as a vote as a congressman, he automatically he supports all 6 of those, even if he disagrees with that one topic. And that's kind of the feeling I got with the whole LGBT issues. Not saying that he is a devout Christian, and we even went back and forth with a few Bible verses whenever we were conversing, because I'm a former ministry leader myself, so I know the Bible as well, and we was able to relate on not just as veterans, but also as Christians. Only he's a conservative, and being trans, I'm more liberal in some ways than others. And it was a great experience it was an honor to get to sit down and talk to any sitting congressman, let alone the fact that we shared a lot of similar traits and leadership skills, and that, as far as being both prior military, and it kind of was able to take the walls down a little bit to be more open, and it's not so much, there wasn't an elephant in the room that needed to be addressed.
Right. And I think one of the big objections, so the first one we came across, was that there wasn't other people that were, involved in the decision making, where if the students would have had a certain amount of input in it, and if the public and the administrators and whatnot, did you get an idea of why the path that they kind of took was not like that?
So I will say that, like, one of the biggest things that the opposition is that they didn't include the student government. They didn't include the academic senate. They had a handful of people, I think it was like 16 or 20, don't quote me on that, I'm not positive on it, but they put out a statement in an Emma email where it went out to the entire university as to their update, and it just, to me, it seemed like they weren't really giving it, they were not trying to be inclusive at all. And they stated their reasons why, because of confidentiality and stuff, but there's multiple ways to go around where you can include people without disclosing confidential information and let them have a voice in what's going on. And that's what a lot of people are upset about, because they didn't include the other stakeholders within the university.
Yeah, I feel like they just made it a little harder on themselves. I think the outcome would have been the same, but I think the public would have been, even though they would have a chance to voice their concerns or objections in the very beginning before the decision was made, being cut out like that probably makes them feel like they weren't important enough to go after, kind of thing. Now, and I agree with you that the politics is a completely different animal. But another objection was this: how does a legislator translate to the CEO or the president of a university? And do you think he's a qualified guy? You think he can do a good job in that capacity?
Well, he's a prior military officer. He definitely holds the leadership traits and values that could benefit any university. That's not the question. However, whether there are people that do question his leadership traits and that, but as one veteran that talked to him, he seems like he's going to do a good job. However, there are reserves that I hold myself, as well as I'm sure everyone else does, as to how well he'll do it and how much of his conservative values will he implement into the different things that he does on campus, whether it's making a decision on this topic or another, and how he goes about leading is left to be unseen. That time will only tell.
Yeah, and the one thing he did say that sort of had everybody even more concerned was the indoctrination topic, where universities should have academics at the forefront, and sort of like the liberal indoctrination being something, that it sounded like he wanted to unwind the indoctrination part. What were your feelings on that?
So as far as that whole statement, all I'm going to say on that is you got to get to know him to understand how he's going to build your own perspective, because there's a lot of mistrust that's still resonating because the way the board went about the decision-making process, not saying that everyone would have an issue with him regardless being a conservative or Republican,
right,
but which obviously hard left will have issues with hard right, right will have issues with hard left. That's but it's the process that the Board of Trustees went through that was very concerning to most people. And I'm not going to say that there aren't people that are concerned about his political views. However, my main concern was the Board of Trustees. I'm not speaking on, I do want to make sure that I'm not speaking as far as any one of the hats that I wear, because student government, we have our stance that it's published and everything. If people want to see that, they can see that. And but I'm speaking as a transgender leader with you today. So
yeah, and what I like best is that you've been able to dig through this as an objective observer, and you dug into the person and the man, just like all of us hopes that if we're going to be judged, if we get classified as being Republican or being liberal, then all of the sores or the spikes that go along with that, versus the guy, and where he might have the opportunity to not be legislator Bill Johnson, he could be the individual Bill Johnson. When you get to know him and his personality, that's what he brings as a CEO of the university.
Yeah, no, he's I'm not going to say that he's not conservative, because he's definitely conservative. He has the Christian values and beliefs in that, but he doesn't want to portray his own personal beliefs onto those that are underneath him, in this case the university. He accepts people for who they are. He said that he's a firm believer in the law, and as the Supreme Court stated, that it's legal to marry men and men and women and women. He he wanted to reiterate the fact that he's not trying to prevent people from excelling and being themselves, because he definitely values people to be who they are and wants them to he wants them to excel in whatever career path that they move forward with. And he values and respects everyone's opinions, even if he doesn't agree with them. That's what I've taken from my interaction with him. Plus, there's times where, as a journalist, I was down there reporting on East Palestine, and I got to see how he was talking to the people firsthand, that from kind of a third-party standpoint. And even down there, he's a very personable person. He has strong views. That's without saying,
Right.
but my concern is, how is he going to move forward, and what type of leader he's going to be for the university. And more importantly, how does he plan on cleaning up this mess that the Board of Trustees has left us in? Because with donors pulling out and stuff like that, as a trans person myself, that's also a student at YSU, I don't want to see the donors pull out. But I understand why they would. I can respect their decision. Everyone's entitled to their own decision. It's their money, after all.
Right.
If they want to pull out, that's on them. And I hate seeing the university that I attend go through something like this, and it hits home, being that I'm trans myself. But it's not one of those deals that it's not much I can do about it, except for speak my mind and do my own investigating, which as he stated, he's like, I'm one of the only people that's actually contacted him to find out firsthand. And he said he's willing to meet with others as well. I mean, whether he does or not, I don't know. I know he has met with other constituents at the university, like different student groups and stuff like that. But he's excited to see what value he can bring to the university from my perspective.
Right. And whenever we get, I look at all this as like opportunities, and it's up to us to, no matter what we're being dealt, like we don't have a say. The board puts the president in place, but to then make the best of the situation that we're being dealt. So, I hope, like, he's a legislator, he's well connected, he knows how to fundraise, like all of the things that he's very good at. Let's make sure that we magnify those things and take advantage of who we have in front of us. So if you were to get in, give your recommendations, say, Bill, this is how this needs to go down to make it be the best version of whatever we're going to happen. So you mentioned already, clean up the mess first, like really put all the accusations and all the bad feelings, put it to bed, get everybody to buy into whatever the vision it is that you choose. What else would you give him as far as advice on how to make this go as well as it possibly can?
Well, I know as a student government representative in that, I'm a firm believer in uniting the university, representing the university, and serving the students of the university and all the stakeholders for that matter in his case. But it's one of those deals. If he brings his values to the university and represents the university the way he represented the Republican Party, I think the university will be fine, but there will be harsh feelings because there are people that disagree. And, it's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. It's a matter of reuniting where we had the fallout, trying to mend the differences between the various views, and really standing true to the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that includes everybody. And we can't hate on one part of it, regardless of what part it is, and accept everything else. You have to be willing to accept everyone for who they are, regardless of whether you accept them, whether you agree with their views. It's a matter of benefiting the university and the stakeholders and community and being a positive impact to improve prosperity and growth in the entire area, not just the university, but for the entire community. And
Now,
lead by example.
yeah, and you're I consider you very reasonable and very objective on this, but there are those that drew a line in the sand and have already decided that no matter what happens, even if there is progress, even if we get the Bill Johnson version that we absolutely hope for. So how do we draw those people back in? Because we need those. So even those voices that might have been heavily critical, they're still important to the process. And if they've already decided that no matter what happens, they're going to object, how do we welcome them back in, or how should he welcome them back in?
Well, I would recommend that he welcomes them as he would welcome any other stakeholder in the situation, because even the people in protest, they still love the university. They still love everything the university has. Well, I'm not going to say everything, because obviously, YSU has a long history that if anyone does their research, they can see what type of stuff that's gone on, but both positive and negative, because with any organization, you're going to have pros and cons. There's, as far as including the stakeholders, anytime there's any type of change, people resist change. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes change, especially if it includes stuff that you don't necessarily agree with.
Right.
You want to stand your ground and hold firm. And I respect their opinions and views to do whatever they want to do, as far as whether they are protesting or, like, I have friends that are activists. I have friends that are media. I have friends that are administration. I have friends that are students. I have a very diversified contact list that I understand each one of their perspectives, and I don't necessarily agree with everyone's perspectives, but that's not on me to agree or disagree with them. I value them for who they are, and anytime with change, you're going to have emotions flare up, and people will be emotionally charged, and they want their voice heard, and they will make sure that their voice is heard one way or another, regardless if anyone agrees with them or not. Hence why you've seen the protests and that. And, I respect everyone's decision that decided to protest for or against the selection process.
Yeah, it's healthy. It's absolutely.
I mean, that's democracy. I mean, we all need to have our say and voice our opinions however we best see fit. And I'm nervous to see where this is going to end up going and what other things are going to happen. Are there going to be others that pull out, or are we going to reunite and get over our differences? That's left to be unsaid, because everything's still unraveling in that. But I think that once we get past the opposition and we're able to move forward, I feel that he will be able to be a good leader and a good mentor to students and administration and faculty. But none of that's going to happen until we get past the opposition and is able to reunite and represent the university in a positive manner, because the university is a major stakeholder for the Youngstown community and the Youngstown area. I believe it's the largest employer in the area as well. And, it's one of those deals that it's sad to see it happen, but at the same time, it's important that it does happen, everything that's going on from all the different angles, because there's so many brilliant people at that. I mean, we're not just talking like the average Joe. We got very smart people on campus and very opinionated people on campus as well, regardless of whether it's the student population, the faculty population, the administration. We're all people. And we all have our own process that we have to go through to whether we want to stay with this university, whether we want to move on to another university, staying with the stakeholders if they want to contribute their funds towards the university or take their funds elsewhere. That's a decision that they have to make on their own. And I respect their decisions regardless of what their decision is. And I hate seeing it happen if they pull their funds away or whether they want to stand firmly with the university. It's like any type of relationship. You're going to have good times and bad, and just because you hit some bad times doesn't necessarily mean it's time to turn tail and run.
That's right. And I feel like if the Congressman Johnson does things fast and he embraces the community and talks to everybody who wants to have their voice heard, and he does that, if there's a vacuum, then that's going to just grow and the animosity is going to be there. And I think you will lose recruited students and lose, your funders that make things happen over there. So I think, ultimately he's got to do whatever he's going to do. He has to do it in really short order.
Yeah. And I will say that he did cancel going to Washington to meet with me and some of the other constituents, and that, as he said, whenever I was interviewing him and asking him about his views and stuff. So he is putting YSU at the top of the list as far as making sure that everybody's voice is able to be heard, and if they want to talk to him, that they're able to reach him and stuff. However, he is still a sitting congressman. He still has obligations
right.
that he has to attend to. So, but he did say that he is planning on doing reaching out to the masses and talking to the student government, talking to the faculty and all the other constituents whenever I was talking to him. And hopefully he does that soon, because people need to hear from him. And even though he did leave a good impression with me when I spoke with him, it's time that will tell whether or not he actually follows through with these things, or whether it was a bunch of hogwash.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, Natalie, thank you for sharing with us. Now, after you graduate, you got any plans on what you're doing after YSU?
So I plan on rolling over into my master's degree. I've kind of held off on the application with the whole unraveling of everything at YSU, whether I was going to do it at YSU or another university. And however, as a trans leader, I think it's important that I stay with my university and support the students and be there in any way that I can. So I do plan on putting my graduate application in for my MA in professional communication at YSU.
I was hopeful you were going to say that, because we need more people like you in our area, and I didn't want to see some media outlet somewhere else poach you, and now you leave the Youngstown area. We need you in journalism. We need an objective, reasonable person representing, and you're a good voice to have out there.
I appreciate it, and I have also applied to a local media outlet, but I'm not going to mention any names because I haven't heard anything back from them. But I also do independent journalism as well, and I'm not afraid to ask tough questions. I'm not afraid to hear people out, and I'm not going to be biased one way or another. And just like when I spoke to him, even though I have a lot of left-leaning ideology or background, I guess you could say, I keep an open mind to hear out people from other perspectives, and whether you're Republican or Democrat, liberal or independent or anything that I didn't mention, that I'm more than willing to meet with anyone, talk to them, and get to know their story, because it's important that people's stories are heard. And any chance that I can help an individual make their story heard, I want to do it. I want to be there. I want to help an individual. I want to help organizations. If I could help every person in the world, I would. I mean, that's a lot of people and everything, but if I could, I will. So yeah, I want, eventually I see myself going on for my law degree, and who knows, maybe even remaining in public offices or running for office or something outside of just student government side of things down the road. But that's left to be said for now.
There you go. Well, thank you so much. It's really nice talking to you down here, and good luck on everything.
Yeah, thank you.